Um, Welcome, James. Today on the episode, I have James Sherrah. He is a healer. He has been in the Navy previously, and he has such a bit of a what we call maybe a colorful story um, to get him to this point in time. Such an epic dude, loves surfing, and he's a dad of three kids, getting it done. Welcome, James.
Thanks, Tyson. Thanks for having me. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to come jump on and just share a little bit about myself and hopefully inspire others to, develop themselves in a very authentic and genuine way,
Yeah, it's
whether
been
you're a father or not.
it's been cool just even like since we've kind of known each other through the Instagram space. And obviously I've been on your podcast now, the Sacred Surf Shack. Um, and it's just been nice to be able to even just obviously at an arm's distance, and me being from the Central Coast originally, and now you're living on the Central Coast. I live vicariously through you when you go surfing at my favorite surf breaks and stuff like that. And but just being able to see a fella who's like getting it done in respect to like parenting. Like we were having a little discussion before off air about the trials and tribulations you've been through this week with your family, and the illnesses and stuff that have been passing through. But yeah, it's inspiring to be able to see a dad who's got a few kids, like we spoke about on your podcast, with us having a second child now, and it's nice being able to take a little bit of inspiration from what you're doing. And um, yeah, so kind of like what I would like to start off with is what is the what is what I'd like to start off with is like what actually brought you into your into your healing role? Should we start on a roundabout way of like what got you there, or is there something that is really stuck out that's created that?
It's why it was a long journey, like I'll put it that way. But it was like I was forced into it. It wasn't I'm going to be a healer, or it wasn't like I chose it kind of thing. Like
Mm.
what you see in the world these days, like you have an awakening. Oh, I've got to be a healer now. It's like I feel like it kind of just, and I'll share some context. Up until 25, I was an addict, or probably longer, but we'll say 25 with heavy addiction. Jumped out of the Navy when I was 23 after 4 years. It's pretty screwed up. Even now, a lot of things still healing from that. But then I landed myself in quite a predicament, which turned out to be my deepest spiritual awakening that I'm still integrating wisdom from now. Is I landed myself in prison for a year. This was in 2016. Oh, sorry, 2015. I got out in 2016. And I realized afterwards, it wasn't really in there, I realized it, but I realized after it, like I was helping people heal in there just by listening and having compassion and understanding. And I didn't have an agenda. I didn't want this or that. I was just kind of just cruising through, doing my own thing. And it wasn't until the end I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to study something, counseling. My dad's a counselor. I was like, oh, I'm going to follow my dad's footsteps, kind of sort of thing. And I didn't really know much about spirituality, so to say. I
Yeah.
was, reading Buddhism in there and Hinduism and religion and just meditating in general. I didn't really know anything about chakras or crystals or anything like that shit. It wasn't until I got out and then, the new age stuff, I was like, oh, what is this? I'm very curious. And, yeah, I kind of just went balls deep on it all, right? Just like every rabbit, every rabbit hole I could find, whether it was, conspiracies or, new age esotericism, Gnosticism. And I went really deep into all of that. And obviously I studied my Reiki 1 and then 2 and then now masters. And I've got an associate degree in psychotherapy, integrative psychotherapy. It's personal. And in the process of getting my rebirthing, breathwork facilitation now, but everything's sort of like led me to be like a healer. And even still now, it's like, it's just kind of happening. It's not like I have this ambitious or ambition to be this sort of like profound, the best healer on the planet. It just kind of just, life keeps pushing me to help be there for other people in whatever way I need to be there for them, and that doesn't necessarily need to be counseling. I think, as you know, we spoke before. Like I started men's circle on the Central Coast, and there was nothing around when I started in 2020, and it started taking a liking. About to have two more open up,
Nice.
and it's been really incredible just to watch men. I think that's part of my purpose and gift is I have this ability just to bring people together.
Yeah.
I was reflecting on it yesterday after men's circle, and my whole life I was always the person who brought groups of friends together, and then I would just slowly either push myself out from my shitty behavior, or I would be pushed out,
Yeah.
and then there would be like, oh, and then I'd start another group. But I just kept bringing people together. It was like I was at the magnet for everything, drawing the metal together. And I noticed how that's been so powerful with men's circle is I'm bringing men together to have a dialogue about their mental health, about stuff, just basically getting shit off their chest. And
That's cool, man.
you know, yeah, so I guess in a roundabout way, it's like I guess life is just continuing me to push me in the direction of healer, teacher, facilitator, space holder. I don't even know. I don't like to put a word on it.
Yeah, well,
Just
that's
want
the
to be
thing.
there for others.
Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
supporting others, and that's one thing I just want to ask was like, obviously going down this route, how has that either affected or helped certain relationships, especially with men that like you could have been friends or acquaintances with as you've taken this journey? Like I know myself, like as I've begun to take this journey from I was like a um, semi-pro professional rugby league and rugby union player at one point to like drinking all the beers with the boys and stuff like that, doing all this CrossFit, lifting all these weights and stuff like that, and then going on my more spiritual journey. I've found that contact piece with those guys, those men, or I don't know, we'll call them guys for now, because that's also something that I'd like to touch on is the menscape. That yeah, how have you found that like that integration with either current or past relationships with men, and how have they related or your relatability as you've gone down this road?
Yeah, as you said that word, I just got goosebumps. Yeah, that's I guess that's it. The relatability, like most of those friendships aren't around anymore of the past. Some of them are because like I can have that. Some of them it's just they don't know how. I like to look at it as the thing is like I've got a lot of plugs that people can plug into,
Yeah,
like little socket points, a lot of things to relate to.
yeah,
Whereas when people don't know how to do that, they struggle to conversate with you if you're not doing the same stuff as them,
mm,
because they might know how to conversate with you. But what I found from my journey and all the kind of similar to yourself, like living numpty life, block life, where you're just doing stuff that is in a sense is just ignorance. Ignorance is bliss, living that sort of life and having fun and stuff. But when you come to, well, I guess when I reflect back and come to this point is I speak to my wife about this all the time. I'm able to meet anyone where they're at,
mm,
and I can meet them with acceptance, non-judgment, compassion, have a chat, and I feel like that for me is medicine. And I don't need to put a charge or a price on it because it happens at the shops, it happens at a park. Happened today with the kids. I was out at the park with the kids, and these old people came up to me and telling me how amazing the family on a little tribe is, and it was just me and the kids, and I can just my ability to talk to them, like
yeah,
I think they really gained a lot from just my response,
mm,
rather than going, "Oh yeah, cool, like get away from me, I'm dealing with my kids." It was just like this beautiful moment, these passing elderly people, and there was about 5 different interactions this morning, but I see that ability to relate to others as in an authentic way, where you're not pushing an agenda or anything. You're just doing it because as a human, and everyone loves. I believe everyone wants to be seen and witnessed and heard. And I know for myself that was a deep yearning for me when I was younger, and even now sometimes there's parts of me that yearn for it even like deeper. But that's part of the wounding I feel, and to be able to meet another in that space and relate to them is quite special, especially if they haven't had that before.
Mm.
And I think, I guess similar hearing your story, and you grew up on the Central Coast, and so did I, and the shenanigans you can get up to outside of school and in school and whatnot.
Yeah.
It left me with a lot of substance to how to connect with others, and also as well, like it helped me understand the human psyche a lot deeper.
Yeah.
What drives people. I think that's why I really turned a corner around, and we were chatting about this. I think it was like not in a podcast. The people who are really believe in these narratives and stuff, but I can see how they would be.
Mm.
Like you can, and just to have compassion for that and to hold space for that, rather than I was for a while trying to jam my truth cookies down their face.
Yeah, trying to save everybody.
Trying to save everybody, yeah, rather than just go, that's where they're at.
Yeah.
Can't rip the duct tape from their eyeballs. Like,
yeah,
that's where they want it.
Yeah, so just trying to find that compassion in that moment for whoever that is. And again, it's like always coming back. Like, you got to keep coming back to love, I feel, because it's like at the end of the day, love wins over anything. And with your kids, you could get angry at them, and they're not gonna do what you got to do. But as soon as you turn that frustration into love, they tend to just do what you need them to do. Or like, especially I've noticed lately, even with River, like, because he's getting that 2-year-old stage, he knows what he wants, and it's like, yeah, you can have what you need right now. I can continue just grinding against, like, no, you can't have it right now. No, you can't have it right now. Or it's like, all right, look, I can understand. I can see that you want this right now. And it's the same thing with like adults as well. It's like, yeah, I can see where you're at right now, and I love you for it. But like, this is my viewpoint. And if you would care to come, like, it's also, I find is like creating that intrigue or need to actually want to know about something, rather than actually like inquiry and creating an inquiry into what you're doing, rather than just like ramming it down someone's throat. Because like, as soon as someone inquires into like how wonderful your family looks down on the beach, like, people ask questions, and like, how are you managing to have such a beautiful moment with 3 children down the beach? Like, well,
Yeah.
some other people like just have their kids just running off everywhere. Like, it's that creates an inquiry. And I think that's where I really try and myself is trying to, even with Riv, like, it's create an inquiry into why he's doing that, or like what's coming up for you. Because that's also one thing for me, is like, as a child, that wasn't on the plate. It's like be seen and not heard. And then anything that you were going through, that, like, shut up, like, or like, that's not what you're like, that's not who you are. Like, you stop crying, stop being a wuss. So it's taken me to almost 38 years to rewind those books. It's funny, like, I even went to a kinesiologist the other week, and went and did some deep work on, like, I was moved schools from, well, I used to live in Cooma down in the New South Wales Snowy Mountains, and we moved schools to a school in Canberra, and I was there a week, and I ended up running for school captain and put together this like ripper of a speech, and won over the student body, got all the votes, and ended up becoming school captain of the school in year 6. But the kids who had been there for their entire primary school cracked the shits, and they bullied me nonstop. And it was that, and they're telling me I was worthless. They were telling me that I wasn't worthy of it, and I should be it, and blah 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 blah, and would hide stuff in my desk so I'd find it, and like notes and stuff like this. So I ended up putting like this kind of cloak on, and just I started doing all of the sports that I could do, so I didn't have to go to the school captain meeting. I started like just skipping out on school captain duties, because like, these kids had told me I wasn't worth it, so I wasn't going to do it. And then it was funny. It's like that's what's kind of had that flow on effect throughout my life up until the other week. And I was like, holy shit, I gotta really mend this little fella that's like year six guy.
Yeah.
He's like, and just drawing back onto that parental thing. I never felt that I could go to my parents that to have that conversation, and then that just followed through as well. And I, and then drawing back now again to these conversations that we're having with people that we would love to rip the duct tape off their eyes and allow them to see everything. It's We need to have that, like you said, is have an open space and have an open heart to allow these people to actually come and maybe not feel stupid, not feel like they've been duped, or whatever it is. And again, it's then there's a question is like, what is reality? Like, what is truth? Like, your reality is different to my reality. And I'd be interested and what is truth? Like, your truth is different to my truth. So it's like there's all these different timelines always playing out. So yeah, what's your definition of reality?
Oh, that's an interesting one. So I feel like, you know, my definition of reality is like we're looking through. So obviously our perception creates our reality, right?
Mm,
I feel like there's, from what I guess what I've studied and inquired into is that it we can't quite get to, there's no such thing. I don't think there's actually perception if we were to be pure beings, right?
mm,
There wouldn't be perception. But that would be far too intense for everyone to live life from, because then we would be living life, it'd be fucking intense. But I guess
mm.
for me, I see what is reality. I think is reality is, what you make of it through your perception lens. And what perception
Yeah,
I see a perception lens is your beliefs, your assumptions, or your limiting beliefs, I should say, your values, your virtues, just basically how you're looking through life in that moment. And I can share key moments of, so say when I was in the Navy, my reality was, it was drugs, it was alcohol, it was partying, but then it was also playing this double role where I was going to the military and I was never taking drugs. I didn't drink and I was just this dumb cunt, sorry, I was
all right.
this dumb guy, right? Um, and just pretending to be dopey, but internally I was incredibly intelligent. I was just manipulating and but I was tearing myself apart at the same time.
Yeah.
So in that was my reality through all
Mm,
these different beliefs and assumptions and just ways of being, internal constructs that I had created unconsciously. It was creating my reality, and it was going to shit. It was very chaotic. Now, if I look at my life now, it's like what my reality is like I'm obviously trying to strip back the assumptions, strip back the limiting beliefs,
mm.
re put in better values. So take values out that are outdated and put new values back in, and same as virtues and whatnot.
And
I
that's an
like the
important
Zen
one too.
precepts.
That's an important one too. Is like you can have a different
Yeah,
value. You are allowed to reevaluate your value system and your virtues as you go. Like if not something no longer serves you, you can okay, well, that's not a value that I actually really like anymore. Like that's not
yeah,
me. And that's what I'm always reevaluating that the value system. And it's like, but being like solid in a couple or two or three is like always going to set you on the right course, hopefully.
yeah, exactly. And that's the kids suck it in. They just suck in your values, whether you know them or not.
Mm,
And it's a very, and this kind of comes into your question of what is truth. And, I believe in absolute truth, the
mm,
absolute truth being like the absolute, whatever the fuck that is. Like I am that,
yeah, yeah,
that's the absolute truth. And then there's like our truth. But I feel like our truth changes all the time. Like, I remember like I think it was in 2014 or something, and my mate he just totally just crackerjack. Don't go on about reptilians, and I was like, "What are you going on about, mate?" Like, and at this point, I had looked into it ages ago, but I just thought it was a joke, right? And then
Yeah.
I was like, nah, I don't believe that. And then it was like a year later, I was like, this guy was on to everything. Well, my truth changed.
Yeah.
You know, in one moment I'm told, put some tinfoil hat on you. And then I'm like, I need some tinfoil hat. So my truth changed now. So I guess I feel like truth's always changing. And even still, like I reflect upon the question a lot is what is true? What is true and what is truth? Like,
I think it
even as
also
we see like
changes
the
with
truths.
do you think it also changes with your ego and your
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
changing of your ego? Like your egoic structure starts to kind of be dismantled in a certain way, and then that truth actually changes because it's like that no longer that part of your ego is dissolved. And then, okay, well, now there's a different type of truth. Like, and like you said before, it's like that fellow is just batshit crazy until you realize, okay, I've actually done this work now. Ah, yeah. And that was like your ego is like, no, I know this, you know that, I know that's wrong.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, oh actually, yeah. And then the ego's got to take a check. Like, ah,
Yeah. And I feel like the ego grabs onto like, truth and a new discovered truth. And like you're trying to science to see that.
hmm,
It's just the ego keeps grabbing on and grabbing on. And then when you go into the dissolution of the ego until you that last, I believe that there's no such thing. And this could be just a belief, I'm not sure yet. That you can't fully dissolve and kill the ego. I feel like that's the ego saying that. And I feel like there's potentially like a 0.05% of ego so you can function in Earth. Otherwise, you dissolve and you won't be able to function. Like, I guess like maybe Ramana Maharshi is a good indication that there was no ego potentially
yeah.
because he was just silent all the time, you know? Um, so maybe there is a place where you can get to that, but you're almost like not human. You're not human.
Yeah,
You know?
I still, yeah, and I agree. I still question that, and that's what I still, yeah, I question it all the time because it's like even to be the most enlightened being around, there's a certain part of spiritual ego that goes with it, you know. So it's like,
Yeah.
and the teachings and stuff that you kind of, and that's kind of like the illusion of the guru in a way, like because the guru, people flock to the guru, so there's this guru, and as long as like if they're removing their ego, sure, but then especially in the modern day gurus, there's a whole lot of
Oh man.
fucking there's a whole lot of ego in that involved, you know. And like,
Charlatans.
yeah, and that's an interesting one because it's like you can still sit there and sprout all the wisdom and not be embodied in any of it and still be drawing all these people and taking them further from themselves than they are when they first got there. And I think that's where a lot of people, and my main message with a lot of people, and especially anyone listening, is like the guru that you're seeing who isn't actually embodied and actually like empowering you to actually find the answers within yourself, and you're just going to someone to find answers, that's someone who's just kind of you're putting on a guru set like pedestal for like it's very dangerous, I feel, because it's like at the end of the day, like you're no longer you're disempowering yourself to actually find those answers within. And I don't know what you how you would feel or what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, like completely. I feel like a guru, a true master or a true guru, ascended master, spiritual goddess, priestess. No, um, those those kinds of embodiments of the human experience, they don't call themselves guru.
Yeah, I just
They are being called that, and they're like, "Oh, if you say so," kind of thing, you know. Okay, cool, you call me that, but they'll constantly point you in the right direction. They'll never
yeah,
tell you. They'll give you a riddle, and you're like, "What's that?" You
yeah,
know, it's like one of my mentors. I actually saw on Tuesday, and he's like this older guy, 70, just been studying Gurdjieff's work for like 25 years, and then 15 years. Been doing it since the 70s anyway. he does the same thing. He never gives me a straight answer. It's always like talking to me in stories or metaphors and analogies. And then for the next 2 months now, I've been like all week, I'm just like, what's that story about? Like talking about some movie. And then he's like, and then I start to pull bits from it. And I'm like, oh, and then if I, because I'm questioning, I'm
Yeah.
asking the questions, what does it mean? Whereas like what you're saying is the charlatans are the ones that like they just sit on the mental plane. It's just all hearsay. They read a book and they
Yeah.
know how to articulate well, but most of the time in closed doors. And I'm making an assumption here is probably not embodying it to their fullness. And I think that's where a lot of people are they're flocking to the image. And this is the problem with Instagram and social media is with the branding and how you can look say in your message, it can easily come across as if this person is really knows something. And I studied under this guy online called Peter Ralston, and he's incredible. Very few people have heard of him when I mentioned him, but he did a video about how he could be like a millionaire, be rich with what he could share. He could just sprinkle a little bit of truth there and a little bit of that there, and price it at $10,000 a thing. He goes, but he sees that as you're now working with the devil. You're now doing the devil's work. Because if you really look at everything that's out there at the moment, it's not the full truth, right? It's just a sprinkle of truth, a sprinkle of that, and most of the time, it's just more assumptions, more beliefs, different values, and like what you're saying, it takes people further away from who they are when they arrive.
Mm.
Rather than them sitting with themselves and going, oh, but I like this value. This value, I appreciate this value. This person's like, no, you must have this value instead. Otherwise, you're not X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And I think that's dangerous is when you go and sit under the feet of someone and they're telling you, this is how it is. There's no other way. This
Yeah.
is how it is. And it can really lead other people astray. And if you don't have discernment and the willingness to be curious with what's actually unfolding before you, like, oh shit, is this what do I really believe this right now? Is this my truth? Like, or am I falling for deception? Or
Mm.
yes, the devil.
Yeah, and it takes a little bit to actually or a little bit of self observation to be able to actually sit there and ask that question: am I actually falling for it, or am I too deep, or is this something that's actually and quite often we go so far down one road that then when we ask that question, it's like, holy shit, how do I get out of it? It's quite easy just to stick on that road and just stay there. And I even with this whole situation that's occurring in the world right now, I ask myself every day, like, is this road that I am actually taking the road that is in the correct road? Like, am I supposed to be doing everything else that everybody else is doing? Or like, and then that comes back into my value system. And it was also, I spend a lot of time sitting with nature, like a lot of time sitting just like observing. Like our landlords, like they live on the same property and they call me Tarzan because it's like they're like, you're so in touch with the earth. Like I noticed kookaburras like swooping in and taking snakes, and like, oh, we didn't even see the snake. And like, yeah, like the snake was there, and stuff like that. And I noticed like when the trees change color and there's certain berries on and I think, and then that's when you actually realize that when you become in accordance with what nature's doing and how nature's moving, then that's when I get that kind of resolution within what my heart and my mission is doing, because it's like that is in within nature. Like whatever else is happening is not what, but it is. It's also, but then on the flip side of it is that is also what nature's intending. Nature's doing something to remove some kind of ignorance or remove some kind of illness from nature to then find what kind of not a balance, but a kind of an equilibrium in the world again. So I'm like, okay, well, the direction I'm going is moving with nature, with how it's intending, and then I'm observing the removing of ignorance or the removing of whatever it is that is occurring elsewhere. That maybe these people, or maybe whatever is happening for these people, will lead them to where we're heading, likely unlikely. But at some point in their next journey, they may end up on this same timeline. It's just, and that's another thing, is if you actually believe in reincarnation and your different soul journeys. So
I know, right? That's that's another part of it. Like, just want to touch on the nature part you shared. It's like, nature never lies. Nature's always raw and honest. It's just, nature just is, right? It's like the
yeah,
kookaburra swooping down, taking the snake, just no fucks. Just like, you're mine.
yeah,
I'm going to eat you because I'm hungry. It's so honest and raw. And, in a world that's just really moving into the digital, really, like, the AI shit just scares the fuck out of me. And I'm like, bringing kids up in this, and I try and, just like yourself, spend as much time as I can outside, beach, parks, nature walks, out in my backyard. Try not to spend too much time inside as where I can. And nature teaches me, I think, to be truly honest and genuine and in touch with spirit. We need to have some form of connection with nature daily. I really feel that. I'm not saying that you can't be deeply in touch with spirit without having a connection with nature. I just feel like it makes it a lot easier to discern that connection. Being in prison and stuff, I have a lot of moments in there where it was like deep connection with spirit, and I was in a fucking concrete box, like.
yeah.
But when I come out, I'm like, so you can have that experience, but it's a lot more harder to produce that than if you were in nature, like yourself, living on the land and just being out there and watching the trees change and all the different seasons that we can see in a year and different changes that happen from that.
Absolutely, man.
That
Like,
tells me.
I agree, like, and it's beautiful that you're able to access that, even in prison, because, like, to experience that and be able to experience and have that connection, in such a desolate environment, it's really really special. And the fact of the matter of it is like, it's accessible wherever, as long as you want to be still and observe. And modern society, we've been conditioned to do and continue doing, and not actually look around and observe. And I feel like with the onset and the unrolling of potentially these smart cities and people living in 15-minute corridors, it's like, that's going to be a huge thing for people to actually be able to find that connection to nature, because that's what is it they're trying to do. They're trying to remove that connection to nature, which is a connection to self and higher self and God. Like, so they're trying to bring people back into these cities and remove that. And you can only got to look at the architecture of today, as opposed to like yesteryear, when there were beautiful big like buildings and huge big parks, and now it's concrete parks. And because concrete is so hard, like, you're not, like you said, like, you're literally going to be living in a prison, that then for you to then access that deeper state of nature and the deeper state of self is going to take a lot of work. And one thing that I really want people to are listening with, who are in a city that is potentially tagged as what is going to be a potential smart city, is finding areas within your city where you can take a moment and just observe nature and allow that energy to be transmuted through you into the earth. Because when and if they do eventually able to roll it out, you're going to need somewhere that you're going to be able to sit. And if you can practice this now, then it's going to set you like ahead of the game when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
um, like energetically wise, it's huge because then you're able to then connect in with nature, and you're able, you don't have to sit there and stare at trees and watch grass grow, but even just simply like like I love watching grass grow, but but even like just watching the birds or whatever it is and noticing how they move, noticing the like, because they're the purest form of nature. They don't understand everything that's on the news. They don't watch the news. They don't listen to everything that everyone's going on. It's like you said, Kookaburra killing a snake to eat the snake to get his sustenance. Snake probably knew that was going to happen at some point in his life because that's his his thing. He's probably killed 1,000 rats before he got to that point.
Yeah.
And I think it's humans innate or over possessive fear of dying that they start to put up these blockades and try and prolong the inevitable, as rather than just living life as the snake did before the kookaburra took it. And that's another question I continue to ask myself as well, is like, is this consistent, like trying to not have the vaccine or whatever it is and whatever all these people are trying to do, is that actually me trying to not benefit, like trying to then play God within, within what I like, rather than just taking the jab, potentially having all the side effects. And
Yeah, I've had the same internal dialogue too.
yeah, like it's just
I
this
think
thing.
I know
It's
where you're
like,
going with that.
yeah, like you have this thing, and it's like, okay, well, you're playing devil's advocate for both sides. I play devil's advocate for both sides, and like, oh, maybe I just got to have it because, like, am I now fighting against what? Yeah, it's like, you know what I'm talking about.
No, yeah, it's like I guess how I hear it is like, what's the middle path in
Mm.
it all? How do you find the middle path in this when it's like really opposing, wildly opposing sides, right?
Yeah,
And it's very clear that the jab isn't healthy. That's pretty obvious at this point.
yeah,
But still, there's people that have gotten it who are very spiritually developed people. Like I know this guy that I study, his name is Michael Tarr. 100% guy is he's lying. Like, no shadow of doubt. He's been 50 years in the path. He's really, really quirky, science geeky guy. But I listened to he's got a podcast and he got the jab. He was stoked to get his
yeah,
Pfizer jabs. But what he experiences in life, like what he shares, is fucking profound.
yeah. Well,
Like
that's
it's
like
profound.
even like Tom Knowles, one of the Vedic teachers, like the head of the Vedic teachings, like he went and got it, and it's like,
Yeah.
so then there's this kind of the like, what the
Yeah, what the
fuck?
fuck's happening?
Yeah, yeah,
No, I hear you, and I've sat with that. It's like, are the people who haven't got it good at actually stitching themselves up in the future? Putting a target on your head, sort of thing, so to speak. But then in saying that, like, there's no solid proof that their plan that are there is going to unfold.
yeah,
Who knows
yeah,
what's going to. But I sort of touched before it escapes me about what you're talking about with people who do live in, if they might be listening and you live in a concrete jungle, and is to find like you're saying, stare at a bird, or even if it's a cat or a dog, or like just find that point of reference, where you can concentrate upon like literally we said stare at a basket almost, but like find that even if it's for 2 minutes, just to really bring that presence into your life, because it makes a world of difference. And I'll share something like, when I first got locked up and I was in Silverwater, and this memory just came back actually as we were chatting. I remember staring out the window and I watched the pigeons or whatever birds they were, and they would just fuck around. No, the plovers, and there'd be pigeons, and the plovers would be chasing off the pigeons. I'd just be watching, like, for so long. I'd be sitting there and be locked in my room, my cellmate, and I'd just be looking out, and I'd just find so much just from staring at the window. And my cellmate's like, he's an Asian boy, what are you doing? I'm staring at the birds, mate. Like, you know, like this tiny little slit. That's not even a window. Like you're just looking through like this, you know. But I found so much connection at just this tiny bit of grass, still all around it. These birds, these little plovers, just going psycho at anything coming near it. I found a deep connection to spirit because I was just like, that's just nature, man, doing its thing. Like, it doesn't even know that it's in the middle of a prison.
Yeah.
They don't even know that they're on this tiny bit of grass in the middle of a fucking prison, right? They're just trying to protect their eggs. They've landed on this shit piece of grass.
Yeah.
So just find that shit piece of grass or bit of nature that you can find in your city that's close by and just sit. I always find find yourself a tree that you can sit under or sit next to and just allow it to ground you.
Yeah.
Because that makes the biggest difference in your life. Just to find something that can support you in your connection, self to others.
Because
Yeah.
that's the magic mode. That's the magic source there. As soon as you can find that connection to the whole, like I stopped seeking, like I probably should look for teachers, but I stopped seeking out teachers because outside's my greatest teacher. Like if I can just sit and and be and just observe and allow, like, and that takes a lot. It took a lot, like I haven't been able to always do that. I was like always on the run, always had anxiety that was so crippling that I had to be working all the time because I was like, fuck, this is like, if I don't make bills, mate. And I was like, nature's going to support you. Nature, like if you're literally living in accordance with nature, nature's always going to support you and is always going to have you back. As soon as you start like taking from it and you begin to like just just continue to take and not give back, and your own internal dialogue is this dialogue of like dread and fear and anxiousness and depressiveness. That is essentially what's going to continue to manifest because you're literally telling nature that this is I don't like what you're giving me, like, but it's like, well, how do I then change that to then create what is actually, rather than just continued path of destruction? And like yourself, like you've been on that path of destruction, I've been on quite a few different paths of destruction, and I've ended up at the same place eventually, to now go, well, like, and the beautiful thing is now, I don't know whether you're the same, you can actually know, like you kind of touched on it before with like your certain groups of friends and stuff, where it was a bit of a destructive pattern where you would either be removed by the group or you'd remove yourself. And like you can now see, I personally now can see whether like I've done, this is something that I need to, like I'm about to pull the ripcord on this. Why am I doing it? Like why am I destructing it? Is it actually a destructive pattern that's actually playing out, or is it actually something that actually needs to dissolve? Yeah, I'd be interested to see whether, like, obviously you've been through those motions yourself, like certain destructive patterns in relationships, jobs, and yourself. Do you still now, are you able to now identify like when that's happening, or like how?
Yeah, sure. It's this is an interesting sort of theme you put up because it's something I've been like contemplating. Um, is like I feel like there's two. Well, this is what I've landed anyway. Two sides of it. It's like we go through cycles, right? And I feel like there's some cycles that you have to go through. There's just no other way that you have to go through experiencing it, because until you experience it, it's a shitty relationship, it's eating too much food and vomiting, or whatever it is, eating too much sugar and just getting that sugar hangover that happens, like too much coffee, whatever it is, like whatever the vice is or the issue, the problem, the substance, the whatever reality is throwing at you. I feel like there's that actually helps you burn it up because you have especially if you've got enough observation and awareness to go, oh, okay, yeah, and it's like they had that experience to go, that was the time, burn it up, right? And then I also feel like there's the other side of things where like you have to willingly walk away from
Yeah.
the thing. you have to do it. You have to get the willingness and make a decision, and whether it's a person, it's an activity, whatever it is that you need to find the willingness to walk away, and that's how you move away from it. And it's not going to be where you have this wild experience that's really shared, that gives you that sort of insight and go, wow, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this anymore, sort of thing. This is not for me. And I guess I've landed at that. I feel like the true path of inner self-development discovery, I shouldn't say true, the path, or the deepest path, goes probably pretty lonely. It is lonely, yeah, you have friends and stuff, but I've just noticed a lot from my journey, and I just keeps getting deeper and deeper, and it's not like I'm trying to do it. I am trying to do it, obviously, but just life's leading me in that direction, and just kind of going with it. And I'm noticing that it's quite a lonely path, lonely journey. And I've met people like yourself online. Most of the people that I actually converse with that are on a similar journey are online.
Yeah. We're all in
Um,
different areas, but yeah, I think I agree with you there. But I think it has to be a lonely journey, because as soon as it becomes like a journey of others, it's not so much a journey for you. Like, there's too many egos and too many personalities that could potentially then skew what you're doing. Like, yeah. So I'm just adding on to that, because I think, like, as soon as you rely on others to continue, like, or be as, like, on your journey with you, you'll either be held, like you said, you'll be held back, or like someone will want to go down that road that seems charming to them, but you don't feel like it's charming to you, but you'll go with them because, like, you want to be on this path with them, only to work out 20 years later or 10 years later or a couple of weeks later that that person's path is not your path. And especially in, like, relationships, um intimate relationships with family and stuff like that, like, I'm lucky that Emma's doing her own journey, and we've both got pretty much the same value set, um and it's great because we're both doing the work, or we're on our own paths, but it's complementing. And I think that's also where it's hard, um, with some relationships, where whether it's either the female or the male doing work, there might be that resistance because, or one of them does the work and the other one doesn't, and there's that eventual breakdown of, or a resentment of the other partner because they're not doing it. And that's kind of what I did put a bit of a post up about the other day. It's like the fellas who are doing the work, and like you do your men's circles and stuff like that, and like, the with the men's circles, are they men that are kind of just entering it, or they're all on different kind of journeys, or they're into the deep stuff already, or like, what's the sort of
Most of
crowd?
the guys, yeah, so the guys that I attract are like, kind of coming back to what we were talking about with my relatability. I attract all kinds of levels of development.
It's great.
Some are quite deep in certain areas, some are shallow in some areas, some are super deep in some areas, sort of thing.
Awesome.
Um, I haven't met too many that are, super devoted to the spiritual part, but they're definitely devoted on bettering themselves, um, improving themselves, and just, yeah, I guess just being better men. They can see their faults and their problems of the past, and they want to rectify that for their future relationships, or some of them that are fathers want to better themselves because they can see how they've disrupted their family and
Yeah.
whatnot. And I find, like, there's just different men on different paths, and I want to touch on a part like what you said around, and you and I both see it, and I'm just, so people will probably agree who are listening. Quite often it is the woman that's doing the work in the beginning, um, and then the man's like, oh, okay, shit, I've got to kind of get on this path. Sometimes it's the opposite. It's the man from what I've witnessed as a woman, I've been lucky to be on a path like similar like yourself. Very lucky to have a woman in my life that we've been on together on this journey together. Like she was with me before prison, and then when I went into prison, and our relationship flourished deeply from that experience of prison because it was really, it was in the absence of like sex and pleasure and all that sort of stuff, and it was just really like it's like dating again. You have 6-minute phone calls, so having like one a day, for a little while. Then you have like your 3-hour visits, and obviously as I progressed through the different prisons, it was better. But kind of coming back to like I learned something from a teacher. We don't always need to fixate on our relationships need to be equally of equal growth, the exact same. Like you could level up with me, boom, boom, constantly level up together. We got to be on this together. It's like if you have an alignment of values and virtues for the family, and you have a great relationship, and it's lots of play and there's lots of connection, and you've got your drama and the conflict, like that's normal. As long as there's alignment there, it shouldn't matter so much that one person has stopped. Say one person's just hit a point, and they're just like, this is where I'm at. I don't want to go any further. It's just I don't feel like I need to at this point. The other person's soaring. They just want to keep going. That person who potentially soaring, if it's a woman or a man, needs to find compassion for their other, especially if there's alignment.
Yeah.
It's like if there's deep alignment there, like you don't leave your partner because they don't want to do any further growth. If they're still treating you with loving kindness, it shouldn't matter. Yeah. And that's what I always like share is like, because I fell into that trap with my wife. She fell pregnant for a second time. She went deep into the shadow, like just, wasn't doing anything for herself. What she was doing, say, prior to falling pregnant for a second time. I was like hammering her, and then had that realization. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm doing the thing that's going to push her away from it all. So if there's any women listening, like, I was doing what a woman was doing to a man. It's just stop. Don't push your man to grow. Allow them, like drop the seed and allow them to meet it in their own time. Because if you keep slamming them with they're doing wrong and what sort of things, it's really activating the thing in men that men do best, and it's shame and shutting down.
And it verges on that. It verges on that nagging of and nobody wants to be nagged constantly. And it's again, it comes back to that inquiry, like we were talking about earlier. I feel too. It's like having that inquiry piece into where he's at on his journey, and it might be as simple as him cutting down 2 packets of ciggies a day. Like that could be the beginning of his journey, or it could be an ice bath that he goes to once a week rather than going and sitting in Vipassana for 10 days. Like, 10 days. Like
100% though.
Yeah. Like if he cuts back from 1 pack of ciggies to 2, like from 2 packs to 1 pack, that's work. That's him doing work. And it's actually then celebrating that. It's like, fuck yeah, man. Like you just, well done, honey. Like you've dropped back from 1 packet to 2, or 2 packets to 1 packet. I can't count today. But like I agree with you, because it's as soon as you begin to push and push and push and push, there's that equal and opposite reaction, and he'll just run the other way, keep going the other way. And it also like inquiry into his relationships outside of your relationships. Like, again, you can't force a fella to stop hanging around with the mates that he has or whatever it is. And it's, again, looking at, for myself, I've done a lot of soul searching and looking at my relationships, especially with family, in the last 18 months, and how those relationships formed a lot of the viewpoints and even the grittiness that's actually like forced me to go, no, I'm done with that kind of relationship, to allow me to actually grow as a person, because that was actually holding me back. And I feel sometimes that is those relationships outside of the household relationship, especially like I've been speaking about quite a lot lately, is the initiation of men into society and initiation into manhood, um, because we lack that these days, and we get stuck on the mother. And if as soon as we get stuck on that mother's teat and we don't get kicked off it, like me again watching the cows, like as soon as the cow or the baby calves get to a certain age, the mother's kicking them off it, like kicking, like time for you to go
Yeah,
fend for
yeah,
time for you to go fend for yourself. And the bull walks around and makes sure that like those calves aren't doing that, and then they start following the
yeah,
bull. They start following the bull around, and it's like anything. It's like you look at the lions. Lions do the same thing. Like the cubs start kind of fucking around with the male lion, and it's somewhere along the lines with us, with humans, and especially Westerners, we've lost that. And that might be another, like you said, it's another entry point for a husband, a boyfriend, or whoever it is, might eventually begin to take that kind of initiation stage of removing the claws of the mother wound or whatever it is. But that again, that's going to be deep work. It's going to be probably a few avenues on. But when we begin to get into that inquiry of like where they're at, you actually then understand a little bit more, rather than just trying to put all of your, oh, you got to go do these 6 yoga classes, or
mhm,
go do this like
yeah,
journey. And
mm,
some guys might be really accepting of it. Others will just be like, no, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And again, like you said, that's one of those things, is like if you're doing the work and your partner's either not ready or is kind of like abrasive to it, then you've either got to accept it and notice why you fell, come back to that love, like you said, come back to love, and see why you actually fell in love with him in the first place, or fell in love with her in the first place, and find that compassion and endearing nature that you actually really liked. And then I guess if it's not there anymore, then that's another question people just got to ask.
yeah. That's true. I like coming back to what you say. It's like inquire into them. Love, compassion, and curiosity really, really supports the relationship.
Yeah,
And I think what needs to just get the fuck out is dissolve. Ultimately, is just these bullshit ideals of what a man needs to look like or be like in order to be a quote unquote spiritual or developed. Or there's so many different types of men out there that they don't have to be doing all the same shit to be
yeah,
well developed.
yeah,
And this, you look at the man sphere at the moment. There's all these different spheres in the masculine world, and it's like you've got to be doing the ice baths, the saunas, the chopping the wood. You've got to be hiking naked in through mud in the snow while it's hailing. And if you're not doing that, you're not a man. Sorry, but you're just not.
yeah,
And I feel like that creates a lot of judgment, which then stops men in just even stepping into just to the gym.
yeah,
And I think that's where it begins. Is just like start challenging yourself in some way and start there. Like you said, the challenge might be to cut ciggies out, which is a big challenge. I don't never smoke cigarettes, so I don't know, but like that's a big challenge. Maybe it's to go from drinking twice a week to just drinking once a week.
yeah,
That could be a huge thing for some men. And I think what I see is happening is like if you're not doing yoga 6 times a week, meditating every night, and not drinking now or tomorrow for the next 6 months, then then you haven't grown. It's like to get to that point takes a long time.
yeah. And it's the
And you
same as
like,
that top,
it's like
the same as the top G situation too. Like with Andrew Tate and all those guys. It's like if you're not driving Bugattis and you're not pumping weights and you're not banging chicks and treating a woman nicely, then you're not a man. It's like you've got to find that middle ground. And like you said, it's
that's
creative.
it.
Yeah,
What works for you? And I was talking to like an energy healer about this because it's like if you can engage in something but not be addicted to it. It's like if you're watching a movie, right? You can watch Netflix, and if you can watch one episode of your show because it shuts you off, and you just want to relax and you should watch a TV show. There's nothing wrong with that, right? If you sit there and watch 4 episodes that are 45 minutes long, there's a problem. And then you do it again the next night, and then the next night. That's a problem. That's an addiction. But it's almost like you have to not do any of that. And it's like that's what's being pushed, is like in these different areas and different spheres for men. It's like you can't game, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't watch that. If you do this, then you failed completely. And it's like it takes a long time to get yourself to a point where you can have self-control in all these areas.
Yeah.
But not to the, I feel like you don't want to get to your point where you're suppressing these kinds of urges to the point where they'll come out in even worse, more sideways ways.
Yeah.
Like that's where I feel like there needs to be the discernment of like, am I suppressing and pushing this down because of these now, what I've seen online, I can't do this. I'm not allowed to do this because if I don't do this, then I'm not a man. Can't do that because I'm not a man. Whereas but rather than going, but what's my truth of that? I enjoy it doing this. You know, for me, I personally love playing video games. I haven't for years. But there's a new game that's come out that I'm like, fuck, I love Call of Duty. And then my favorite one came out. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to stop myself from playing something that I fucking love, I find joy in, that I only play for 20 minutes. I literally can't play it for more than 20 minutes. I get bored. Like, oh, I've had my fun. You know, I've had my 20 minutes of joy, and then I'm moving on to reading a book, whatever it is. So I feel like for any man listening out there, I feel like it's a balancing act. You've got to refine yourself to the point where you are balanced, not lopsided to the point where you still, it's like, I think it was Ramdas talking about, it's like the guy who's given up cigarettes, but they've counted every single day, week, minute, and they can tell you that. That's the person who still hasn't given up cigarettes, right?
Yeah, because they're still
thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it every day. So, what's the point in quitting?
It's the yin and yang, it's like, it's, that's what the work is perfectly like the yin and yang. You've got the whole dark and the small white spot, and you got the white hole and the small dark spot.
Yeah.
There's always going to be the darkness within the light, and there's always going to be the light within the darkness, and it's just finding that perfect synchronicity that allows that to happen without going too far one way or too far the other way. And like you said, with that, like I put up a post the other day and about fellas playing video games, and because a lot of women messaged Emma when she asked like, what is one really huge sticking point with like your man? And a lot of women said, oh, he plays video games like hours on end to the point where disconnected from like myself and the children, that they'll go to bed and he's still sitting playing video games. And like you said, like there's that point where it becomes an addiction. It's like going down to the pub and like sitting there on the horse races for all day, like that becomes an addiction. Like that's like, if you can't just go down there, and I used to be that point, like I got to go to the bolo and sitting there and be there for the whole day's races, because like there's a point when that becomes, if you have to be there and you can't miss out on it. Like that was like even when I was doing drugs, like I have to get drugs because otherwise I'm not, and it's the same thing when I was at the gym. Like I got to go to the gym because like if I don't go to the gym and spend 6 hours at the gym, and I'm going to miss out on my gains. And it's like, no, now you got an addiction again. And that's always played out. And you begin to now, and I always still question myself, what am I doing right now that is an addiction? Or is it something that's actually not like, or is it not? Am I doing something consistently, repetitively that is not serving my higher good? And I keep checking them. It's that personal checking in. It's like, that's it. Yeah. And that's it. The inner check. And that's even a start. That's a start for fellas. Is like checking in. Is like, what am I doing too much of that is actually not serving a higher purpose?
Mm-hmm. Why am I doing it? Right.
Yeah.
Coming back to the intention. What's your intention? Are you using this to support you. Because I was the same as you in the gym. I'd get so addicted. I'd go like 3 hours a day and flog my body and surf, but all to avoid feeling, all
Yeah.
to escape a problem. You know, and on the external, people are like, killing him. Look at him.
Mm.
And then internally, I'm like, oh my God, I can't escape this.
Yeah.
How do I get rid of this? You know? And I think that's where men need to begin. It's like, you know, video games is a problem, you know, massive problem for men
Mm.
because it's just like it's ingrained in them from kids. And I was a massive gamer when I was a kid. And I had to go through a period where I didn't play video games for 3 years or 3.5, 4 years. I stopped in 2000. Basically, when I became a dad, I stopped playing in 2017. Didn't pick it up again until 2021 with a Call of Duty. Then I didn't play it for a bit, stopped. And then that got me really deep inquiry into that sort of like video games and how big of a problem it is because they're escaping into virtual reality, into some reality that's not real, so that they can just get lost in it, not think about things, all their problems. And that's the biggest problem I see is like, not even just that, but like even just in movement. You know, one of those in the men's circle, one of the blokes that was there was like, he identified that uses movement as a way to cope for his feelings. He doesn't know
Mm.
how to feel them. So he runs and runs and runs and works out and exercises and surfs. And that's just all he knows. And he realizes he's like, fuck, I'm going to stop doing that because that's actually becoming unhealthy. Even though it is healthy, one level, it's unhealthy on another. And I think, like, you know, what you were saying is for men just to start checking in. You know, what is your intention behind what you're about to do? Why are you doing it? And the big one is, who is this affecting when I'm doing it?
Yeah.
You know, is that my kids, my family? Like, you know, obviously it's can affect yourself, but really asking that hard question is, who is this affecting most? And is it actually worth my time doing?
Mm. Absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better because they're just, yeah. Um, there's not a lot more I can actually add on to that because, yeah, you've wrapped it up really well with that because it's the check in and able to be able to take note. And that's one of the real big things of being a man. If you can actually take that check in moment and actually own it, you know, yeah, okay, and own your shit, like that's a huge step forward as even just stepping into your masculine because it's like, yeah, I can see that it's kind of affecting what I'm doing. All right, let's kind of put that in place to either
Yeah.
make a change or have that discussion with my partner or whatever needs to happen.
And I like to, like, you know, a wise man judges, right? But then there's this thing in society of like, dude, you don't judge me. It's like a wise man judges. You know, a
Mm.
wise man will go, I'm not going to go into that, you know, old men of old, you know, the squires and the really wise, jacked Spartans. They're not going to go and drink piss with the farm hands and do stupid stuff because they're warriors. They're going to sit there and they're going to contemplate. And they're going to judge what they deem to be supportive for them because they're the ones at the front line. They
Yeah,
got to go to battle and whatnot.
and there's a line in the sand when that judgment continues though. Like if you continue,
Yeah,
you
of
sit there and
course.
you judge someone, or you judge yourself, or you judge someone, and you continue to pick it apart. Then that's
Mm-hmm.
begins that it's like judge. Okay, now contemplate on a resolution or contemplate on how this affects X, Y, Z, or how it's affecting me or the situation that I'm in. Because it is. It's like as soon as you turn it into a contemplation, like, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
play devil's advocate of it, play like plus and minus, and you go, yeah, okay, well, now I can draw a definitive answer which direction that I actually want to take this in or take that
Mm-hmm.
thought pattern. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And then on that note, I think I want to be mindful of your time.
Yeah.
We're getting on in the chat.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to maybe pick this up at another time.
Yeah, sounds good. Do a part two if you want.
Yeah, that'd be cool. We'll keep these part 2, 3, 4, or 5. Love chatting.
Yeah, I have to do a conspiracy one.
Yeah, we'll go. We'll definitely get down there. We'll get down to that route, that's for sure. We could go for 5 hours if we really wanted to today.
Yeah,
But
you've intuitively picked it up because the car just pulled up. So
yeah, cool.
yes.
What one question I want to leave you with? I'm gonna probably might throw you under the bus here, but is there one book that you've read that has formed you right now, or you're reading, or something that is actually stands out as something that's like been a poignant moment in your life that's gone, aha, this is the here they come.
Yeah,
Hello.
say hello.
Hello.
Um, one book. So there's probably plenty of books. So I'll say two books actually. So the first book would be by Krishnamurti.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing in life? That I've read that like 3 times, and that was quite quite a potent book. It's really small, really easy to read. And then I think the next book would probably be by Peter Ralston, The Book of Not Knowing.
Cool.
That's been quite a pivotal book, very deep, and I'm reading it on my second way through now. They're probably two books. So many books though, right? A list of books, but they're probably two that have really supported my inner development. And then I sort of think there's another one I want to share. No, I'll leave it there.
Cool.
Those two books, they're really, this is about the human condition ultimately. So
Great. I'll put them in the show notes for people to read and check out. So,
fantastic.
And where can people find you?
So Instagram, I've got a YouTube now and Instagram. It's only two platforms I'm using. So YouTube is Sacred Surf Shack. It's only just started. And then obviously my Instagram is either Sacred Surf Shack or James _Zen. Either James, I don't know. I'll give you the handle.
I'll put it in the show notes. And if anybody's on the Central Coast and wanting to get involved with your men's circles and stuff like that, they just contact you directly, or there's somewhere they can go?
Yeah, contact me. Yeah, contact me directly and I'll let you know. So I've got one up. I've got another one starting at the end of this month and one starting at the start of next month. I also do one-on-one sessions, very limited. I don't have a lot of space for that as I'm prime carer for the children most of the time. My wife builds it a business, but I do open space up for one-on-ones.
Right.
I do energy work or counseling, mentoring style stuff for men, but basically just men. So that's it.
Cool, man. Catch you out in the waves and surfing if they want to go out for a surf with you.
Yeah, you want to come out for a surf? Trade with me.
Well, mate, on that note, we might wrap it there and call it a day. Thank you for coming on.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on.